give you more knuckle.
Hello guys and welcome to If Live Were an Anime. Today, let's talk about Gantz. Kei Kurono is a selfish, horny and ordinary teenager. He doesn't seem to have any hobbies, any passions, besides looking at nudie magazines. And he doesn't seem to have any talents either, not even friends, family. He lives alone in his own apartment, although he's still a teenager. When a nice old lady politely asks him for directions, Kei responds rudely and does not provide any help. Kei Kurono is truly a piece of crap as a human being, absolutely immersed in his petty vices and nothing else. But Kei Kurono wasn't always like this. When he was younger, he was something else. He was brave, outspoken, with a sense of justice and extremely cheerful, like any kid should be. We don't know what happened to Kei. We aren't told really. But dying will be the trigger for Kei to remember who he was and improve himself or die trying. Gantz is a manga series about people who have passed away and are given the chance to be revived by a mysterious sphere, under the condition that from time to time they will be summoned to participate in an alien hunt and fulfill certain missions during it. If they fail to complete the mission or kill the target, they will also be killed by a bomb that has been implanted in their bodies. Needless to say, these teenagers are under a lot of pressure. Not only they have to figure out how to survive each hunt, but every time they are paired with new random people who have also died and that will be joining the hunt. And sometimes dealing with these new members while trying to survive will turn out to be very, very difficult. I love Gantz. I think as far as sci-fi goes, I have never seen anything like it in an anime or manga. It has the right amount of violence, nudity and sci-fi to make it an amazing action-packed series, as well as having deep psychological and philosophical themes to it. It's like Neon Genesis Evangelion, but with more shootouts and more deaths. What I want to focus on in this video are the two protagonists of the manga, Kei Kurono and Masaru Kato. Both were friends as children, but the paths seem to have drifted. Kei turned out to be just a selfish, short, sex-obsessed jerk, and Kato turned out to be an imposing, tall, kind-hearted, responsible person, and also a great fighter. When they were children, it was the total opposite. It was Kato who admired Kurono, and Kurono who was the leader. But now that they have grown up, Kato realizes that the Kei that he admired and who was fearless and kind no longer exists. As they both die together trying to save a homeless man, to the reluctance of Kei, they are taken to a Gantz room and given the same instructions for their first hunt. During their first mission, they manage to win, and both Kato and Kei show amazing skills to survive. But especially Kei is able to intuitively use the suits they are given to their utmost potential, since the suits, if used properly, enhance speed, strength and endurance, and physical ability overall to a superhuman level. These, along with the weapons they are given, are what allows them to survive. We see from the first mission, as reluctant as they are and as wimpy as Kurono looks, he has some natural ability for this type of game. He is able to think quickly and adapt and take action under the most dangerous circumstances. And is during this process, through facing death constantly and working with his team and managing to survive one more day, that Kurono begins to change. He begins to remember who he truly was, but it's not a quick transformation. In fact, for a lot of the manga, Kurono does things that are not okay. Like taking advantage of a girl also named Kei, whom he met in the Gantz mission and who is in love with his friend Kato, and that is not cool. We see Kei constantly trying to push the girl into having intercourse with him, but she's reluctant to do it. She really doesn't want to do it, and he doesn't seem to understand, you should accept that. Instead, he just keeps on pushing and pushing, and unfortunately the girl will die in a mission, not before confessing her love to Kato. The author Hiroya Oku really throws some curveballs when it comes to character development. Whenever we see Kurono do something great, like defeat an imposing monster against all odds and showing courage and determination to help his team survive, we also see him still obsessed with his own pleasure over the well-being of others. Oku is known for creating some extraordinary manga, but usually he deals with violence, racism, sexism, etc. in a less than tactful way, so to speak. It's like having my grandpa write a manga screenplay about aliens, yet add all of his old man's biases whenever he can to it. So this creates some extremely weird and at the same time hilarious situations that anyone who has read the manga or seen the anime would know what I mean. But progressively, Kei does become a better person. He becomes the kind of guy that his team trusts, relies on, and looks for when they need direction, which is a stark contrast from his everyday high school persona, which is that of an unpopular guy perceived as dim-witted and a loner. And I love how this is portrayed in the manga. After a few missions with Gantz, Kei really begins to change. Although the constant target of bullying, now for Kei, whatever rejection he is subjected to or whatever opinion his classmates have of him, which in the past seemed to have made him very bitter, now is simply ignored without effort, and all the criticism and mockery from adults and peers alike just slides off of him like he was made of Teflon. Kei is the true Teflon Don. Opposing Kei, we have the antagonist figure of Nishi, a sadistic psychopath who cares only about himself and enjoys the gore and violence that Gantz has allowed him to perform. Nishi is also a loner and an outcast, and he thinks him and Kei have a lot in common, which they do. Nishi is what Kei would have most likely turned out to be if he didn't change his extremely selfish and lazy self. But even Nishi, who is a cold and ruthless killer, has his moments of humanity in the manga. Like when we see him dying, all he manages to do is call out for his mother in his last moments, just like a child. But this is such a humane thing to do. Most men, when faced with death, usually turn their thoughts to their mothers, to the one source of authentic and selfless love in their lives. Another instance we see Nishi has some sort of moral compass, as damaged as it may be, is when he is bullied to the breaking point and decides to kill everyone in his classroom. And after the killing, he only spares the one girl who treated him like a human being, that one girl who had a crush on him. For Kei and Nishi, we see that the continuous mockery they endure from their peers has turned them into very cold and distant people, and I find this true and fascinating. It's very hard to have a proper character when everyone around you seems to try to diminish you at every opportunity. The difference between the two being that Kei manages to tap into some sort of will to live and desire to protect his loved ones, unlike Nishi, who has given up on any feelings of humanity altogether. That's why Kei is able to find the possibility of change among all the chaos, while Nishi forgoes his humanity willingly because he has become hopeless. Gantz is a crazy manga, and I mean that. So many subplots are created and then simply forgotten by the author. A lot of the character development is reversed from one chapter to the next. For example, we see Kei turning better and better, but in the next chapter he does something that makes us think, when is this guy gonna change? Like when he asks a so-called plain-looking girl on a date as a cruel joke that he is talked into by his classmates. We think, what a piece of garbage this guy is, hasn't he learned anything? Thankfully the twist is that will be the girl he ends up falling in love with. However, it may be due to the immense pressure that mangakas face when writing a manga, or the constant demand for quick delivery that some decisions seem rushed. But with all its faults, Gantz is a gripping sci-fi tale of deep psychological insight. One of the most badass scenes I have ever seen is when the main characters speak to a race of aliens equivalent to what we would consider God and start asking it for answers. All this God manages to do is to reassure them that their lives are meaningless and nothing more than dust in the grand scheme of things, even going as far as to revive their loved ones in front of them, just to have them killed instantly again, right in front of their eyes, for no other purpose but to illustrate the point that human lives are meaningless. Yet the main character refuses to accept this, and even if his life is ultimately meaningless, for him, being able to return to the girl he loves is enough meaning to endure anything. So the transformation of Kei, funnily enough, is not into something new, but into something he already was, who he was as a kid, the better part of himself, and this concept I truly like. Most transformations that are worth anything usually mean to subtract from something more than to add to it, to uncover rather than discover. Although I'm not religious, there is a concept in Buddhism that I like. It says that all beings have the Buddha nature, that is, the capacity for absolute and instant enlightenment. But what keeps them from it is that they don't realize that they have it already and are unable to see their own true value. In a Buddhist tale, it is said that there was once a renowned prostitute who is dared to seduce a famous monk for an amount of money. Being as beautiful as she was and as skillful in the art of seduction as she was, she accepts the challenge. She tries to first flirt with the monk, but he remains impassive. Then she tries to touch the monk, but every time she tries, he floats like a cloud out of her reach, and this surprises her. Finally, when she gives up her attempts to try to corrupt the monk comes down and looks into her eyes and says, "If you could see yourself as I see you, you would not be with the people you're with, neither doing what you're doing." For the first time in her life, the prostitute had been looked as a person, not as a thing or a means to an end. She had been reaffirmed that there was something magnificent, some amazing potential inside of her. And with those words, she took them to heart, renounced her previous life, and became a very famous Buddhist nun, recognized even by the Buddha himself. The way these two stories tie together, it is simply in the fact that the moment we recognize the ever-present underlying dignity that we all possess, once someone helps us realize this, we have the option to live up to it, to live up to that potential, and to free ourselves from anything that would want to keep us away from it. And to be able to recognize that others also possess the same dignity and right. Therefore, we would be able to expand that sense of self-worth to everybody. I think Kei, in his journey, thanks to being able to love and be loved, changes in a way that allows him to realize the better parts of his nature. And that is a journey I highly recommend to see. Thank you so much. Like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe. I really recommend Gantz. Take care, guys.